much of this tournament, alongside Arcanine, another top-tier Pokemon, the Kartana, Togedemaru, Tapu Fini, and Mimikyu. So going with the classic Snorlax-Mimikyu combination that we saw really early on in the meta, but sort of dropped off later. He's going to be trying to make sure that his Snorlax team can stand up against the Double Ducks, the Pelipper and Golduck Rain mode of Estephan. Of course, we see the Metagross and Tapu Lele and Garchomp, very common Pokemon, alongside the Double Ducks, and using the Trevenant to fill in that grass slot on the team.
Well, I think if we look at Estephan's team to start with, it's a very interesting one because it's a combination of potent pairings. You've got Pelipper and Golduck, Metagross and Tapu Lele. Of course, Metagross capitalizing so well on the Psychic Terrain that Tapu Lele brings. And interestingly, his grass type is a slightly unused one in the Trevenant.
Right.
The Trevenant, though, in my opinion, matching up very well with that Snorlax. You think Snorlax is going to be great? I think Trevenant could be a solid answer to it, because really, what can Snorlax do to it?
Yeah, that's very smart. I mean, it resists the ground type high horsepower that we see as the coverage.
Attacks.
No normal attacks. And if you can't attack a Pokemon with, if Trevenant can wall the normal and the ground, not much that Snorlax can do.
Just has to get past the Arcanine.
Yes.
But in the same way,
but the rain
helps out with that, and the whole team, I think, coming together very well. I'll be interested to see Wolfe's use of Togedemaru in the same way he used Raichu last year for his World Championships. I feel it's a very similar slot and a very similar play.
All right, well, we are actually going back in time here for our first game of round one. The classic Metagross and Garchomp lead back from when I was still playing, alongside the Snorlax and Mimikyu for Wolfe. So obviously, going for that immediate hard Trick Room threat with that Snorlax and Mimikyu.
It's really hard to stop a Mimikyu. The way that they come together is certainly interesting, but with Garchomp able to move first, potentially able to break the disguise, Metagross doing a lot of damage, may be able to follow up and take a knockout. As long as disguise is broken, then he's going to be able to stop that Trick Room, and Snorlax isn't going to be able to capitalize on the speed advantage. Well, with that in mind, of course, it's going to be a little bit harder if we do see the Snorlax set up, but interesting opening.
Yeah, it looks like the Mimikyu is going to go ahead and use its own Z move to start off here. Instead of going for the setup with Trick Room, it's just going to be a never-ending nightmare. Going to target down that Metagross, trying to make sure that Snorlax has no offensive pressure to worry about on Estephan's side. Of course, Steel no longer resisting that Ghost type means it's going to be a super effective hit. And Wolfe picking up the first KO of the game. Garchomp just going for the Rock Slide here will be able to pop the disguise of Mimikyu, deal a little bit of damage to Snorlax as well. Would love to get a... Oh, that's so sad. Oh, and does get the flinch on Snorlax, so Wolfe not going to be able to get set up on that Snorlax just yet, thanks to Rock Slide's flinch.
I don't think not being set up on the Snorlax is the worst thing, though, because he's removed something very important already.
Absolutely.
He got rid of the Metagross, and I think maybe we saw something interesting there in that he didn't want Estephan to try and capitalize on a potential Trick Room and get rid of that. So he smartly just removes it from play, takes it out of the equation immediately. And that means he can't get hit by a super effective Steel type attack. That's so important to remove a threat.
Absolutely.
And looking at how Wolfe's built this Mimikyu could be so interesting. Z Crystal, particularly the Ghostium Z.
So scary.
So spooky. Was picked up because of its numerous options. But going for the big never-ending nightmare, absolutely fantastic way to start off your World Championship defense.
Absolutely. Well, it will be Pelipper for Estephan there on the top of your screen. Mimikyu showing off the Destiny Bond here. So Wolfe trying to take one of the Pelipper or Garchomp down with the Mimikyu. Earthquake not affecting Pelipper thanks to its flying type. Will deal damage to Mimikyu and Snorlax. A lot of damage to Mimikyu. Pelipper, though, goes for the Hurricane onto Mimikyu. So
this is big.
That's a huge deal there. Mimikyu will faint and bring Pelipper with it. Getting rid of the weather, ignoring a potential Focus Sash, which is what Pelipper loves to run.
That's the biggest deal, is not being affected by the Focus Sash because of Destiny Bond.
Yep, and there is the attack onto Garchomp, getting a little bit of extra damage and Rough Skin, but the Rough Skin is just enough to activate Snorlax's Berry, and so Wolfe is right back up to basically full hit points on Snorlax, only losing Mimikyu, but Mimikyu taking down 2 Pokemon this game. That's a lot for a setup Pokemon.
Getting the value out of Mimikyu is something that I think is going to be important to Wolfe's team. And we see, very importantly, ignores the Focus Sash, takes Pelipper with it, basically takes out Metagross with no concerns at all, and he should be in a pretty solid position. We do see Estephan's final Pokemon, and it's actually not going to be the Golduck to capitalize on the rain. So A curious team selection from Estephan here, but bringing that Kartana onto the field from Wolf's side, pretty strong play right now. It can outspeed the Garchomp, maybe pick out a knockout there. Then it gets the Beast Boost, which is going to make it terrifying to the Tapu Lele. So overall, very smart play. The Mimikyu's been so important, and Snorlax is sat at nearly full health.
Yeah, Snorlax doesn't care about any of this right now.
Snorlax was the defining Pokemon at North American Internationals, and you have to wonder, have people finally brought those answers to it?
Well, so far it looks like that might not be the case from Estephan. Kartana will just protect itself this turn while Garchomp goes for the Rock Slide again onto the Snorlax, maybe hoping to get another flinch here. Psychic into the Protect, and Estephan is getting the flinches, so Snorlax is not doing as much damage as it could, not getting set up like it wants to, but that's really just delaying it right now.
Yes, it's certainly an interesting way to play the turn. I think Kartana there probably detecting, keeping itself safe, trying to scout out a little bit of how he thinks Estephan's going to play this turn, knowing what he can do, and a very smart switch here to change that terrain up. And without the possibility to change, that Tapu Lele is not going to be as scary for the rest of the game.
Yeah, Tapu Lele, of course, can't switch out. That protects Kartana, but it's fast enough to get a lot of damage onto Garchomp, which just barely sticks around with, looks like, probably 1 or 2 hit points. Garchomp able to get a Rock Slide off onto Kartana and Tapu Fini. Kartana, of course, also took that rough skin damage, so taking a little bit of extra chip damage here. Tapu Lele's Psychic onto the Kartana is enough to pick up the KO with the rough skin and the extra chip damage, even without the terrain. So Estephan really pulling back a little bit there, getting that Kartana off the field. Now Wolf needs this Tapu Fini and Snorlax to be able to take out Tapu Lele and Garchomp.
I think it's in a very solid position if you're Wolf, though, because the Psychic damage so limited from Tapu Lele. Even though we did just see the Life Orb get revealed, good information to gather in this best-of-3 setting. Not taking the knockout on Garchomp, which would have been a very clean ending to the game, I feel, is big, and that's something they need to start thinking about in these. How these damage calculations are falling, what you can knock out with what, and knowing how this matches up, I feel very interested to see there wasn't the knockout with the Leaf Blade from Kartana there.
Ooh, Tapu Lele showing Thunderbolt onto Tapu Fini, super effective, but Tapu Fini is very bulky. Wolf will keep that Pokemon around. Rock Slide, though, will connect onto both Pokemon, so the Rock Slide plus the Thunderbolt will be enough to pick up the KO onto Tapu Fini, and a critical hit onto Snorlax as well, and another flinch! Wolf Snorlax just not able to move.
Well, we do see Snorlax didn't actually set up earlier in the game, and we do see Estephan giving away a lot of information here. He's given away the knowledge of Life Orb. He started showing Tapu Lele's moveset, but that's what he needs to do to
If he gets the win, that's worth it.
Yeah, it's information you can't conceal when a victory right off the bat in the World Championships is on the line.
There's the Moonblast coming in from Tapu Lele, deals a lot of damage back to Snorlax. Snorlax has not been able to recover, get any kind of recycle berries, and the Poison Jab from the Garchomp, and Estephan Valdebenito taking Game 1 over our defending world champion.
Latin America is not a region to be trifled with. A lot of people say it. It's repeated over and over. And it didn't look great. We were talking middle of the game. Ooh, Mimikyu's taken a number of knockouts. Just wasn't enough, was it?
Yeah, a lot of those techs on Tapu Lele. That Thunderbolt had to have been a little bit surprising there. Really good for matching up against, opposing rain teams, or if you really think that Tapu Fini is going to be the call here at Worlds. And so far, Estephan looks like he's making the right calls there. Wolf, I think, played very well. You have to think if you didn't get some of those flinches, Snorlax may have been able to take over that game. So we'll have to see how these players adjust.
The flinches definitely helped, and you can't rely on them in Game 2. But you've given Wolf so much information. It's a really dangerous thing to do against Wolf, of course. He gave up information on Poison Jab on his Garchomp, which is almost common, but not on every single one. Then you've got a ton of information about this Tapu Lele, the Thunderbolt. Really, really important. The fact he didn't bring both of the ducks. Something we see really could affect his decision-making coming into Game 2. I would be curious to see how much the Tapu Fini is going to get bought. Now it's a little more scared of Tapu Lele. They've both picked a team without Tapu Koko, which was the dominant Tapu Pokemon in the recent North American Internationals. Mixing it up, and I think Tapu Fini has to be played to really deny offensive terrains from the Tapu Lele, from the Tapu Bula, and from the Tapu Koko. In this case, he did deny the terrain, but it was kind of nullified by that Thunderbolt being there on the Tapu Lele. So very interesting team. Falling short on the knockout on Garchomp, I think, is going to be very interesting to see how this Garchomp is trained. We noticed in the order it's been moving, been moving very, very slowly. And that's information about maybe the way it's been trained to be a little bulkier, take more hits. Taking that Leaf Blade was essential.
Absolutely. Just being able to stay up at that 1 or 2 hit points, continue to fire off Rock Slides, and pick up the finishing hit with that Poison Jab. 1 hit point goes a long way.
Yeah, you can stick around, and that's why the Focus Sash item has been so essential in the video game championships.
All right, well, we are going to see Trevenant out on the field alongside Garchomp for Estephan. Of course, Wolfe will go with the Snorlax and Mimikyu lead once again. So Wolfe trying to keep things pretty similar. And then Estephan shaking things up a little bit despite winning that first game.
Well, we do see the Trevenant coming in to basically try and beat the Snorlax. Of course, Flinches beat it in game 1, but you don't want to rely on those, and Trevenant having a number of options. Not getting hit is one of them, and of course getting Will-O-Wisp back in return is another pretty useful one. In the same vein, it's facing off against a Mimikyu. We saw Mimikyu in game 1. Never-ending nightmare. Right off the bat, take a knockout on Metagross.
Yep.
If it can get a knockout on Metagross, the Ghost-type Trevenant probably not sticking around too long. So that's something he's going to have to be scared of. I'm sure Estephan would love to, keep it in, but it's probably not going to be the best thing.
All right, well, Estephan going with what worked in game 1. Another Rock Slide pops the disguise on Mimikyu and will connect with Snorlax. Will-O-Wisp from Trevenant will connect onto the Snorlax, so Snorlax will be burned this game. So no matter what, if Wolfe gets set up here with this Belly Drum, does still have to worry about the burn as well. So this Belly Drum will drop Snorlax's hit points and then activate the Berry, so Snorlax can heal right back up to where it was when it got hit by that Rock Slide. And then Mimikyu, flinched through the disguise, so Mimikyu not able to set up Trick Room here. That's going to be a really big deal for Wolfe.
Yeah, we see Wolfe trying to make an adaptation and trying to make a prediction based on what he saw. He gave away the information of Never-Ending Nightmare in game 1, so he thinks about it as we play game 2. A lot of people may be wondering, why didn't he just take the knockout? Why didn't he go for it? And that's because he's making assumptions of what his opponent's going to do. He thinks Estephan's going to remove Trevenant from play so it doesn't get knocked out, and he's going to be at his leisure to set up the Trick Room.
Absolutely.
But he wasn't. He got caught by the Rock Slide, and Trevenant managed to get that burn down on Snorlax. So even though the Belly Drum's in play, not quite as preposterous amounts of damage coming out.
All right, well, Wolfe is trying to make something out of this with a Destiny Bond from Mimikyu again. Garchomp will just be able to fire off an Earthquake, and it's looking very similar to turn 2 of game 1 right now. A lot of damage onto Mimikyu, a little bit onto Snorlax. Trevenant, though, will just go for the Wood Hammer onto that Snorlax, trying to squish that thick Snorlax. Not enough damage to pick up the KO, and of course, wasting the turn of Destiny Bond on Wolfe's side. Wolfe will be able to recover up with this Figgy Berry again, but if Estephan can keep getting free damage on Snorlax, that recycle is just not going to be enough.
Yeah, that's going to be really important that he can keep the Snorlax around, especially because Trick Room hasn't been set up. It does make it a little harder to keep your Snorlax around.
Right.
But after you've set a Belly Drum, you really need to get something out of it. You've got to get good value out of that setup.
Absolutely.
That's so essential. And Mimikyu now, low down on health, poses an interesting problem to Estephan. He could take the knockout and take a numerical Pokemon advantage, but he has to be so scared of Destiny Bond. And knowing that it goes first because of the way these Pokemon are ordered in speed, how we've seen that previous turn play out, he just has to be careful. If he takes the knockout, will he give up something so essential, or could he potentially let Trevenant go for it?
All right, well, it looks like Wolfe is just going to go on the offensive here, using his Z move as well. Just again on the Mimikyu. Looks like it's going to be that never-ending nightmare once again.
Going for the damage.
Going for the damage, not for the tricky plays here. Going to just finally pick up the KO onto Trevenant here, but Estephan has to be happy with what that Trevenant did already. Just getting that burn off onto Snorlax is a huge deal.
That Trevenant did pretty much the key part of its job, which is burn the Snorlax. It's great if you can stick around and not take the damage, but it didn't, so it's in a good position still.
Another Rock Slide coming out from Garchomp, picks up the KO onto Mimikyu, and another flinch on Snorlax. That is not what you want to happen in Game 2.
When you're already down 1 game as well, people do say where there's a rock slide, there's
a way.
And even though it's not the most damaging move, it seems to be paying off for him. It's one of those decisions you have to make. Do you go for Earthquake for bigger damage, or do you go to Rock Slide to open the door to your opponent not being able to move? They are both equal in the Pokemon count, but I really, really like the position with a healthy Metagross and Garchomp on Estephan's side of the field. We know Kartana can't knock it out easily either.
Yeah, it would take at least 2 hits from that Kartana to knock out that Garchomp. Snorlax, of course, is one of Wolfe's biggest threats on his team. And at this position, without Trick Room, Burnt, not much it can do, but Substitute Kartana is something that can turn this game around. But Garchomp's showing Fire Fang onto Kartana will be more than enough to bust that Substitute. 4 times super effective attack there, so Estephan did have some things still hidden up his sleeve for Game 2, showing Hammer Arm on that Metagross as well, definitely showing that Snorlax is not safe.
Yeah, showing off a number of tricks that he's basically trying to counter things with, and I think this Garchomp is an interesting one. It's slower, it's bulkier, and can take Leaf Blades very comfortably from Kartana, and it can hit back with a Fire Fang. That's a very interesting choice of move to basically make sure, and now we've seen 4 attacks, we can maybe make it inkling about what the item is on there. No Protect on your Garchomp is a risky play to make.
Yeah, but if you're getting the bonuses from Assault Vest, it can be worth it.
It's so worth it, especially with some of these kind of neutral but special attacks coming out, attacking with these special attacks that rather than the physical. Metagross as well, showing Hammer Arm. We've seen that a little bit at Regionals this year, but bringing it to the World Championships, admitting this is a call. I think it's an inclination of how scary Snorlax has been that people need more fighting type moves.
Absolutely. That is 100% a call for when you're afraid of Snorlax, you bring that Hammer Arm on Metagross. Looks like Wolfe is going to try and take back a little bit of momentum with a switch to Tapu Fini. Kartana just going to detect itself, trying to protect for 1 more turn, while Garchomp gets a Fire Fang into the detect. Metagross just going for the Hammer Arm will do a little bit of damage to that Tapu Fini, but Wolfe protecting his Snorlax. Of course, the speed drop on Metagross, not irrelevant here, most likely. We'll make sure that Metagross is the slowest thing on the field, at least for now. And if another Hammer Arm comes through, Snorlax may be able to get some damage off from that Metagross if Wolfe can pick up a KO on this Garchomp.
Yes, I think that's a very smart play to bring the Tapu Fini in from Wolfe, and this is one of those kind of trademarks of his play, something that won him his World Championships, was very smart switching to not take much damage on the way in. So knowing a fighting type move is going to come in, Tapu Fini is a fantastic switch. He does need to get some damage out with Tapu Fini, take some damage on something like the Garchomp, try and get it with a Moon Blast, should be in a good position there. But I will say Estephan looks very content with that switch that just got made.
Yeah, Kartana switches out for Snorlax while Poison Jab from that Garchomp deals so much damage to Tapu Fini. Wolfe going for some of the RNG of his own with that Muddy Water. Will connect with both the Metagross and Garchomp. Wants to see some accuracy drops. Does get it on Garchomp. Does not get it on Metagross. And it's going to be the all-out pummeling.
More tricks coming out from Estephan's side of the field. He looked comfortable in the switch. I think he knows where he's going to be hitting it, and seeing that Snorlax was probably a delight for him.
Absolutely.
All-out pummeling based off Hammer Arm. Going to be doing a lot of damage.
Those aren't legs, those are fists, and it's going to be a lot of damage onto Snorlax. Estephan picks up that KO on the switch-in. Pretty smart target anyway, because that would probably deal a lot of damage to Kartana regardless.
Course, even through a potential doubled attack.
But happy to pick up the KO onto Snorlax. That's one of Wolfe's threats out of the way. But Wolfe does get to send Kartana back out here, and getting the accuracy drop onto Garchomp is pretty big. Yep. Now it is not guaranteed that Estephan will be able to hit all of his attacks.
Well, Fire Fang can already miss. It's not 100% accurate. So maybe trying to buy a little more time there. But Metagross is still going to be a problem, and this Tapu Fini needs to do a little bit more before it gets knocked out. Kartana is probably going to be able to deal with both of these with some decent neutral hits, but Kartana doesn't have anything that's super effective against either of these in most of its move pools. We've seen it carrying Detect and Substitute, so it only has 2 moves. Sacred Sword and Leaf Blade are going to struggle.
Ooh, goes for... Oh, the Poison Jab misses! Tapu Fini able to get the Muddy Water off. That accuracy drop coming up huge, so Tapu Fini survives 1 more turn. Muddy Water will pick up the KO on Metagross, and another accuracy drop onto Garchomp. Now, with that 2 Muddy Waters, that should be within range for Kartana to pick up the KO here with Leaf Blade. Huge miss there from that Muddy Water accuracy drop onto Poison Jab. But now, Estephan's final Pokemon is Tapu Lele.
Yes, and this Tapu Lele is bringing its own terrain, so any of its Psychic type attacks are going to be in a really good position. You have to put yourself in Wolf's shoes a little bit and wonder how he targets things down. He needs to start taking knockouts quickly. Maybe he only has one turn to protect Tapu Fini, and you have to wonder if Kartana is able to deal with his Tapu Lele.
Right.
We know it doesn't have Smart Strike, so it doesn't have a Steel type attack, but it needs something else dealing big damage. I think investing in Tapu Lele, removing that from play, and hoping that the accuracy drops from the Garchomp are enough to keep it in check. That's how Wolf's going to have to swing this game very, very quickly back in his favor.
Absolutely. We already know that Estephan can pick up whichever KO he pleases with that Tapu Lele, but Wolf, using that substitute, will be able to protect itself from an attack here, though. Tapu Lele goes for the Psychic onto the substitute, so Kartana will tank that. Not going for the Detect, just going for the substitute in the hopes that maybe Estephan would have targeted down that Tapu Fini and get a free substitute, but probably pretty happy about that. Fire Fang connects, though. 2 Muddy Water accuracy drops, but the Fire Fang connects when it counts. Tapu Fini all alone now against the Tapu Lele and the Garchomp. Garchomp avoids the first Muddy Water, but will connect with Tapu Lele. And if Wolf can get some accuracy drops here, may have a chance, but not going to get it. And that's going to be game. And Estephan is going to take down our defending world champion in just one more turn.
2-0 as
2-0.
well. A very, very comfortable, a real landmark win for something like the Latin America region. But it was just played very, very well throughout. I do think that, you know, a little bit fortunate to hit the Fire Fang through the double accuracy drops, but smart targeting. You have to see what Estephan's thought pattern was there. He respected that the Kartana was going to be the thing that could swing it back in Wolf's favor, and then immediately double targeted it, so even with a substitute.
Yep.
Unless there was a Detect coming out from that Kartana, then he